After a day of twists and turns, there was actually progress at the Trans-Pacific Partnership negotiations in Vietnam. The TPP would have profound effects on many parts of the Canadian economy, but it's also fraught with political maneuvering, and it is particularly tricky for Canada in the midst of trade negotiations with the U.S. Remember, President Trump pulled the U.S. out of the TPP back in January. Today, the 11 partner countries agreed on some of the core elements of the proposed deal. So the countries have agreed to standards on the environment and labor, but there are still some areas of contention. There is a lot of disagreement on rules affecting the auto sector. Intellectual property provisions have been suspended, and Canada wants to ensure the right of each country to preserve cultural policies. That, of course, a particular concern for Quebec. Now, word of that agreement came only after a really strange turn of events earlier in the day. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau was a no-show for a key meeting, and for a while there, it looked like the whole deal had been thrown off the rails and that he was responsible. The international media didn't pull any punches. Screwed by Justin Trudeau. That's what this Australian headline screams, and that was echoed all over amid fears that Trudeau's no-show could mean no deal for the other countries. A last-minute
complaint from Canada killed off any chance of the TPP trade deal being sealed.
As the leaders' meeting to officially sign the agreement was about to get underway, there was a sudden realisation. Canada wasn't there.
It is true that Canada did not attend that meeting, and those talks have now been postponed.
The Prime Minister's office says this was just a scheduling misunderstanding. So let's just try to decode this with the help of Katie Simpson in Ottawa. What are we talking about here, Katie? A scheduling misunderstanding or some crafty political posturing?
Well, the government is officially saying this was a scheduling issue, but with all that's happened over the past 24 hours, it sure looks like Canada is trying to get some strong messages across, both at home and abroad. Domestically, there are certain Canadian industries and labour leaders that are not happy about TPP. So in no way does it hurt the government to slow down the talks, given the blowback at home. The biggest concerns are coming from the auto sector, labour unions, the dairy industry, and the Canadian tech sector. So there are a wide range of issues and worries about this deal. Now, even though at the end of the day, the Canadian government does want an agreement, the Canadian delegation is clearly making a point that it just won't accept any deal for the sake of accepting an agreement, and that does play well at home.
Right, so they do have some reasons to worry, but I mean, politically, this is clearly a card for Canada. So how is it planning on using it?
Well, on the international stage, it also sends a number of different messages. Right now, Canada is in the middle of those difficult NAFTA talks, and the Canadians don't want to look weak or to be seen making undesirable compromises. Some analysts will argue about whether the Americans are paying much attention to TPP talks since Donald Trump did pull his country out of the deal, one of the first things he did when he took over as president. But China is watching. And remember, China is not included in TPP. If this deal is finalized quickly, the Trans-Pacific Partnership could be used as the template for how trade in the Asia-Pacific region works. Canada is deciding whether it wants to do free trade talks with China, so it is in Canada's interest to get Canadian values, Canadian demands etched into TPP as a starting point for future, much larger agreements.
Right, so it's a total tightrope. Katie Simpson in Ottawa, thank you, as always.
Thanks.
If you're wondering, what is the TPP? Let's back it up a bit. Here's a primer on the Pacific trade deal and how Canadian industries could be affected.
On this issue of TPP 11, it's something Canada is, of course, very much engaged in.
TPP 11, that is the Trans-Pacific Partnership of 11 countries creating a free trade zone spanning from Chile to Vietnam. For Canada, the real prize here would be unfettered access to Japan, the world's third largest economy. The big Canadian winner in the deal would be the agriculture industry, which says it has billions of dollars at stake. Beef and pork producers in particular are expecting to export an additional $500 million worth of products to Japan. Canola exporters would stand to gain too, with duties eliminated over 5 years. For consumers, we can expect to see car prices drop over time. But there is give and take in trade deals always, and there's concern TPP will flood Canada with cheaper Asian vehicles, maybe hurting Canada's auto industry.
When it comes to the auto sector, you bet that we'll take the time to consult with stakeholders to get the deal right.